A true African love story of heartbreak, betrayal, and divine timing. They say when a woman prays, the heavens listen. But sometimes, even the heavens stay silent. And when they do, a woman must decide. Will she keep praying or will she walk away? This is the story of Adaobi, a woman who waited 11 years, not just for a child, but for love, for truth, and for herself. Adaobi was the kind of woman who didn't need to raise her voice to be noticed. Her beauty was quiet, gentle, and graceful, the kind that made even the market women pause and smile when she passed. She grew up in Umuchuku, a quiet Igbo village known for its red soil, strong traditions, and hidden stories. Then came Emeka, a calm, focused school teacher, humble, kind, the kind of man mothers prayed their daughters would marry. And when Adabi and Emeka met, people whispered, "Now this is love." It happened on a rainy afternoon. She was stranded at a bus stop, soaked and shivering. He walked up, quietly held out his umbrella. He didn't say much, but their eyes did the talking. From that moment, something began. 3 years later, they stood side by side as husband and wife. And on that wedding day, everything was perfect. Adabi wore a shimmering gold George wrapper. Coral beads hung around her neck like royalty. Her head tie was tall and elegant. She didn't just walk, she glowed. Emeka wore a crisp white Isiagu shirt and red cap, standing proudly by her side like a king. The drums were loud and joyful, elders clapped, women ululated, and the entire village danced around them. Even the wind seemed to sing, "This union will be fruitful." The first year of marriage was like a dream. They laughed, they prayed, they planned. Every Sunday after church, Adaobi and Emeka would sit under the mango tree talking about baby names. If it's a boy, he'd say, "Obina." If it's a girl, Shimdinma. Adaobi would laugh and say, "Let's wait for twins, one of each." They even bought baby shoes at the market. Hope was everywhere. In the meals she cooked, in the prayers he whispered, in the calendar she marked with stars. But months after months, nothing. At first, there was quiet hope. Adaobi and Emeka didn't speak about it. No complaints, no questions, they simply waited, believing that it will happen soon. But villages, as you know, don't stay quiet for long. It started with whispers. "Still no sign? She's still flat? His mother won't be happy, oh." Then came the jokes. At weddings, people would hand Adaobi baby powder with a smile and say, "You're next. Better start preparing." And every time, Adaobi smiled. But behind that smile was fear. Fear that maybe something was wrong. Fear that the waiting might not end. She said nothing. But inside, the silence was beginning to speak louder than words. Then came the visit. Mama Mika arrived one afternoon, unannounced, with a face full of concern and a bag full of pressure. Inside the bag were herbs, bottles of holy oil, and things Adaobi didn't even recognize. She sat down and began without small talk. "My daughter, you are a good wife, calm, respectful, but your womb is sleeping." Adaobi stayed silent. She didn't flinch. She didn't argue. She just listened. Mama continued, "I brought you bitter leaf water, fertility bark, and holy sand from the mountain of prayer. Boil it, drink it, before the cock crows, every morning." Adaobi nodded. She didn't want to fight, just peace. That night, she sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the sachets. She didn't cry. She didn't say a word. She simply closed her eyes and whispered, God, please. Time passed, but instead of healing, the silence began to break them. At first, Emeka held on to hope. He would say, it doesn't matter, you're all I need. But slowly that changed. He stopped reaching for her hand at night, stopped joining her in prayer, stopped smiling altogether. Year 4 became year 5, then year 6. Adaobi kept showing up, with strength on the outside and sorrow on the inside. She went to her friends' baby showers, sat quietly in the back during naming ceremonies at church, each time clapping, smiling, pretending, and still she waited. One evening, at the village borehole, she overheard two women whispering, she must be cursed. Or maybe it's the husband. Not every problem wears a skirt, you know. That night, Adaobi came home. She boiled Mama's herbs again. She drank. She lay down. And she waited. Every marriage faces its own trials. For Adaobi, her trouble had a name. Ngozi. She was young, outspoken, always hanging around the school where Emeka worked. At first, Adaobi thought nothing of it, but soon the signs became clear. She saw how Ngozi brought Emeka lunch almost every day, how she laughed loudly when he was near, how her wrapper rose too high when she bent down to sweep, and how Emeka had started smiling again, but not at her. Then one day the whisper came, Ngozi is pregnant. Adaobi's heart sank. That night she asked Emeka. He didn't say a word. He didn't deny it. He didn't explain. He just walked away. Adaobi packed her bag in silence. No shouting, no tears, no final words. Just one wrapper, one Bible, and one folded photo from their wedding day. She left behind the herbs, the baby shoes, and the dreams she once held so tightly. She didn't go far, only to her mother's house. But that short walk felt like a lifetime. Because sometimes it's not the distance that hurts, it's what you're forced to leave behind. 2 months later, there was a knock at the door. It was Emeka, thinner than before, eyes heavy with regret, alone. He knelt down in front of her and said, Ngozi lied. She was never pregnant. She only wanted what we had, and I let it go. Adaobi looked at him, not with anger, not even with pain, but with something deeper, something heavier. Without a word, she opened a drawer and handed him a folded paper. Emeka opened it. His hands trembled as he read. Fertility test. Adaobi Kemdilim. All results normal. No fertility issues detected. His eyes widened. You knew? He whispered. Adaobi nodded slowly, her voice soft but steady. I've known since year 2, but I didn't tell you, because I didn't want you to feel broken. Emeka broke down, right there on the floor, and wept. They started over, not with fantasies or fairy tales, but with honesty and healing. They prayed together again, held hands like they used to, and slowly laughter found its way back into their home. They tried IVF, it failed. They tried again, another failure, but this time there was no blame, only quiet strength and faith that refused to die. In year 10, They opened their home to foster children. Adaobi taught them songs from her childhood. Emeka read to them under the mango tree. And just when they had stopped expecting, just when they had given it all to God, the miracle came. The day Adaobi found out. She didn't shout, she didn't scream, she didn't even move at first. She simply sat on the floor, placed both hands over her belly, and whispered, "Thank you." When the day came, she gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, Obina, Chimdinma, the very names she and Emeka had chosen years ago during those quiet Sunday afternoon talks when hope was still just a dream. Even Mama Emeka wept. She knelt before Adaobi, tears running down her cheeks, and said, "Forgive me." Adaobi took her hands, lifted her up, and smiled softly. "There's nothing left to carry but joy." The church was full. Voices lifted in praise. Drums echoed softly in the background. During the naming ceremony, Adaobi stood in front of the congregation, holding her daughter close. The women watched, some smiling, some weeping, all listening. Adaobi took a deep breath and spoke. "I was mocked, I was left behind. They said I was empty, but I was never empty. I was just waiting for my time." She turned to her daughter and bent gently to her ear. "Never rush love, never beg to be chosen, and never fear silence, because sometimes God is just writing a longer story." The church was silent, and then the room filled with claps, tears, and joy, not just for the babies born, but for the woman who waited and never gave up.